Welcome to Hey Sister. This is episode 43, Sound of Music.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Join me, Courtney Lewis,
And me, Carly Ferguson,
in our conversational podcast about everyday situations.
You can count on us to tell it to you straight with our own sisterly spin.
Consider this a phone call with your own Southern sisters as we discuss with you personal accountability, healthy relationships, managing responsibilities, and contributing to society.
Each episode will consist of straight talk and a call to action.
Your sisters are calling.
Thanks for answering.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hey Sister. This is Carly, and Courtney and I want you to know we're so glad you're answering our sisterly call this week. If you were here last week, you know that you are joining us during our back to school series. This month and next, we are studying various core and elective classes we studied in grade school, but as they actually apply in the life of an adult woman.
Today, I get the privilege of introducing y'all to our guest expert for the subject of music. This subject is one of the elective courses Carly and I felt strongly about including in our back to school series because although we both enjoyed playing the flute in band growing up and singing in our church choir, we feel like we could use a little more motivation to make sure we incorporate music into our daily lives as busy adults. That's where our guest expert comes in. I first discovered Maren Paris Cline in a Facebook group called High Five Live that shares daily live videos to fuel spiritual inspiration with messages of hope and miracles throughout the world. Maren, her mom, and sister were on as live guests, and I got to hear each of them perform, plus share a little faith. Maren's family's musical group is called Three Reds, and now I have a working theory that redheads possess the highest level of musical talent in the world. Maren is a beautiful singer and harpist, and as a member of Three Reds, has traveled throughout the world performing. Their most recent music video that took place in Ireland is truly something to behold, and we'll be sure to link to that in the show notes today. We know you'll enjoy hearing from Maren and learning a thing or two from her as our music teacher for this straight talkin' sisterly phone call. So Maren, welcome to Hey Sister.
Thank you so much for having me on. That was such a kind, very generous introduction. I definitely want to test your theory on the redhead thing. I know it's not true, but that sounds like it could be fun.
So Maren, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, like was said, I perform with Three Reds, the music group. We started in 2017, so it's been really fun. And actually, my mom, my sister, and we were on that video, but my two brothers do participate with us and are part of the music group in and out as they can. They make a joke, though, because they aren't redheads, that they're going to become the two brothers. So it'll be the Three Reds and then the two brothers, because people always introduce them separately. And we're like, no, they are part of the group. But it's super fun to have this music group as a family. And a little bit more about me, I'm in law school right now. And so that's really fun, kind of crazy, kind of exciting. And I have 1 year left. So feeling good about that. But again, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
We're so excited. And I'm sorry I did not include your brothers in the introduction. We have a brother ourselves, and sometimes I feel bad that we don't reference him in our Hey Sister. I mean, literally, it's like, hey, sister. And
yeah,
so
what do you do?
Shout out to the brothers. We love you, brothers, but sometimes we just need some girl time. But we do love you, and there is such a place for you in this world. But this podcast definitely speaks to the sisterhood. So I'm glad you shared the love with your brothers because they deserve the love too. And I do believe they were in the video, right?
Yes, they were in the video.
Okay. I was like, I saw them in the Danny Boy video. It was really fantastic. It was so great.
Thank you. That was so fun to film.
It was really cool. And you played in that video, Molly Malone, right? That was her name.
I did. Yes.
I was like, man, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. That video was just so well done. And I love that song. Hearing Oh Danny Boy and seeing you walking the streets of Ireland, what were you throwing out of your basket?
I was supposed to be throwing and holding cockles and mussels.
Cockles. What is a cockle?
I think it's a kind of mussel. For the sake of the video, though, I did not know how to get access to any cockles and mussels, and that seemed a little bit sketchy to try to preserve them on our drives around Ireland. So we ended up just using, I think, my brother's old jacket we put in there as a substitute for cockles and mussels, and we just stuffed it in there and put some flowers in there that we use. So you got to make do with what you have.
Exactly. That's a good motto for life. Keep rolling and make do.
Cockle and muscle through it,
Muscle through it.
I love it.
Well, and we'll keep you in our prayers for this last year of law school. You can do it, sister.
Thank you.
So today we've got you on, and speaking of school, we've got you on as our guest expert to talk about music. And I'm just curious, what do you remember about music growing up?
This is kind of funny, but my mom is actually a music therapist. So she works day in and day out with kids using music therapy, cognitive music therapy, neurologic music therapy, and helping with a variety of different things. You could imagine my mom as a music therapist. She used it on us every day, all the time, me as her child. I was even born to, if you know Vivaldi, there's the 4 seasons that he wrote. I was born to the spring movement, came out to that. And so honestly, growing up, my mom would use music in our daily lives. We learned our telephone number to a song. We learned various principles that she wanted us to know to a song. And so we'd sing that song when we needed to remember it, when we wanted to be reminded about, to get that thoughts out of our head, we're going to wash that thought right out of our head type idea, or we're going to sing the song so we can remember our phone number. I think I was 1 year old when I could remember our phone number because of the music that she would put to it. So that was my memory growing up. And then just getting into junior high and high school, I was involved in almost every music group that I could in high school. It was a fun time. I sure loved music and loved to participate in every way I could.
That's incredible. I am just mind blown. What an amazing woman your mother is. I have to mention too, that High Five Live video that I saw, in the particular one I watched, people were suggesting songs they wanted to hear your mom play. And so she sat at the piano and just made a custom arrangement, blending 2 songs together that she just composed in her head on the spot. Wow. So it does make sense. Now that you're saying that she is a music therapist, I'm like, oh, it makes sense. This is who she is. That's incredible that she has these gifts and talents, and clearly pass them on to you, because when I've listened to you play the harp and your Instagram where you just bust out some cool tunes on the harp, I feel like that's redefining the harp for me. That's amazing.
Oh, that's kind.
Your passion for music definitely shines through.
I think too, it's really cool that it's infused into your childhood so naturally, but that you didn't push away from it. I am kind of in our family a little bit more the rebel of sorts, where I just don't want to be put in any kind of box. But you were inspired by your mother's talent and that love, and that you carried it on. I think that's wonderful. That speaks a lot to the genuine nature of how music really moved all of you and inspired all of you. It's really cool.
Thanks. It's nice of you to say. We couldn't really get away from it, for better or for worse. It was all around us.
Have you ever tried to memorize some of your legal torts or anything you have to study for law school to music? Have you ever tried that on your own, coming up with a song for something as you study?
Yes, I have tried it. I did it for my torts class. First year law school, I thought I'm going to try every way I could possibly think of to try to learn these things. And it helped some, but I found a couple other strategies that I think helped a little bit more. But unfortunately, when I'm in a final, I can't stand up and start singing a song to help me out.
I'm sure your fellow classmates would love if you'd start singing all the answers to every test question.
That's true.
Now let's talk a little bit about music as an adult. So you mentioned that you can try and incorporate into your law studies, but more often than that, how do you use music as an adult in just your daily life?
I love that question, because I've always been fascinated with the idea of using music as a power and as a tool in our lives, because it really can be utilized as such. There's a whole study of music in the brain, kind of neurologic music therapy. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a neurologist, and I'm not a music therapist, but I've looked at these studies, and it's fascinating to see how music can really change your mind. When you talk about neuroplasticity, your mind is malleable, it's plastic, and it can be changed, and music can help change that. And so when I think about what music I want to be listening to from day to day, I'm thinking about what sort of message the lyrics have, how that will have an impact on me and my psyche, and especially about how that will change me as a person. And so I really do try to be intentional with how I use music, and being aware of the influence that it has on me, and also being aware of what type of music inspires me, because I want to be inspired, and what type of music makes me feel peaceful, because I want to feel peaceful. And so I've made these albums, a variety of albums that I have just on my Apple Music, that I'm able to go to when I'm feeling certain feelings, or I want to feel certain feelings, so that I can use those in my daily lives and really use it as a tool to help make me, hopefully, a better person.
Wow, the fact that music can make us a better person. I think we need to just sit on that for a second. That's really profound.
Well, I think right now I don't even listen to the lyrics. I'm listening to the song because of the beat, right? I've said it before where it's like, yeah, the lyrics are lame, but it's really about the beat for myself. But it does matter. So being intentional, I like how you said using that power and the desired emotion or what you would like to do or accomplish, using the music as a tool to be able to do that. I've seen that in specific instances already in my life. I love how you said that you were born to the spring and of all these 4 seasons. I love natural birth and stuff. And so we've talked about that actually on one of our other episodes. And it's just funny because each one of my children were born to different types of music, just depending. For my first, I was trying to hype myself up because it was a really long labor. And by the end, I was like, put on my running playlist. I need something to keep me moving. And my last child, it was Christian worship music, and he is very mild mannered, so that's very nice. But it did help just being able to tap into those different facets of emotion. So that's really cool.
So we can tap into emotion through music, but what if you find yourself as an adult thinking, I don't really have the time to make a playlist. I don't have time to indulge in music, Maren. Put on your teacher's cap for us. We've got you here as our music teacher. What can you teach our sisterhood about how to prioritize music in their own lives?
Okay, this is something that I am very passionate about because I'm going through it myself. I'm going through this transition of my life where I've come out of being involved in music from when I was a youth, in college, young adulthood. I was consistently going to practices, and this was a huge part of my life. And of course, I'm involved in Three Reds and this music group, which I love, but it has to be something that's intentional. So there's a transition where all of a sudden adult responsibilities come. We have bills to pay. We have kids to look after. We have a variety of adulthood things that we have to do day to day. How do we get this done? But I really feel so strongly that if we fill our own cup, if we go and we are intentional, again, it's this being intentional, being aware of what we need at different times of our lives, because doing things that build us up bring joy, and we deserve to have joy in our life. We need to have joy in our life. And music is, sure, you're aware of the idea of sharpening the saw. We need to sharpen the saw. We want to fill our own cup before we can fill others. We need to put our own oxygen mask on before we can help others, as they say on the airplane. Mm-hmm. I think that's crucial. And so recognizing, kind of putting this into perspective, that if we're able to take and, express art for art, listen to music just for the sake of it, right? It doesn't need to have an economic benefit around it. We don't need to quantify it in some terms. If we can take 5 or 10 minutes to do something that fills us up, that brings us peace, that brings us joy, then again, I think that we will be better for it. We're going to be sharpening the saw, sharpening our pencil. We're getting ready for whatever is to come. And then we'll be grateful that we did take that time to do so, because we'll be more apt to take on the challenges that life brings for us. So we have 1,000,001 excuses. We all do, but I implore everyone, take the time because it's worth it.
As you're talking about sharpening the saw, sharpening our pencil, I love that. I think about music, and I love being a listener and enjoyer of music. My dad would always say, I don't play anything, but I really enjoy music. Like, you need people to be able to enjoy music. But how beneficial is it for us to even learn to play an instrument? Or maybe I played the flute in high school. I don't pick it up hardly at all. It's not that it gave me a lot of joy in high school. It was kind of checking the box in a way. I would play in church every so often and things like that. But would it be motivating to me to know that there's, like you were talking about, neuroplasticity and things like that? Is there benefit to me, even though I don't have a lot of time, making time to pick up that instrument, or to maybe even start learning something new, even if it isn't to expert level? Is there a benefit in that?
Yes, 100% yes. There is a benefit in being able to do that and learning that. Of course, in your life, you're going to want to weigh a variety of factors on, well, is this something that is sustainable, is something that I want to do? If it doesn't bring you joy necessarily, because when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm going in an assumption that you already like music and you're wanting to go back to that, and that brings you joy. Because a lot of people, for them growing up, it could have been more of the dance side of things, or it's with sports. right? Like those things are what fills their cup. So for me, music really does fill my cup. And I believe it can fill everyone's cup, but they need to have some association with it. But that neuroplasticity side, which you're referring to, is it going to be like concrete beneficial for me from a biological side to see that I'll be receiving some benefit if I learn this? And there are studies that are done. I was actually reading beforehand. There were some Harvard studies that have been done, and many researchers have. Again, I don't push myself out to be a researcher in this area or a professional at all. I have to put a little disclaimer in there. But there are studies that show that if you learn a new instrument, and actually if you learn any new skill, then you are creating these new synapses in your brain and new pathways and patterns, which will benefit you, right? You become more creative thinkers, you become better at solving problems. And there are a host of benefits that will come not just to you during that time in which you play, as you get better at something, and the satisfaction you gain as you're learning a new skill, because that is satisfying. It's great to see that you're progressing in something, but there are a host of benefits that you'll see matriculate in other parts of your life. I'm not an expert on the science side, but my mom is, and it seems like I've listened somewhat to what she's been telling me over all these years.
She'll be like, oh, she was listening.
Or I'm getting everything wrong.
No, I love it. And that definitely answers that, because I think just sometimes we psych ourselves out of something that maybe we want to do. And maybe I've always wanted to learn the guitar or something. And there's never a point where you could say, no, old dog doesn't learn new tricks kind of thing. That's not the case. Our brains are very much able to build new synapses and all these things. And that's really exciting to hear that, and very motivating. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I love everything you said about learning something new. Even as an adult, try something new. But I have to say, I love what you said a second ago about art for art's sake, that there's joy just to be had in enjoying music for the sake of it being a form of art. And I think so often art, it can be drawing. Sometimes when I just sit down and take a second to actually color with my kids, I'm like, oh, this is quite fun. I forget that you can find joy in that. And I even thought that the other day. My oldest son takes piano lessons, and to have him learning piano is really important to me, because that's one of those things that, unlike your mom, I am not the mom who is a great musician. And even though I have basic knowledge of music, I wish now as an adult that I'd spent more time practicing as a kid. I wish I'd taken it more seriously, which I would say that our parents had us learn piano and other music better than they learned it. And now that's like every parent's dream, is to have their children be better than they are in some area of life, maybe in all areas of life, but piano for sure is one area that my husband and I both are like, we hope that our kids can learn piano. That's what we used to say. Now we're like, we hope one kid learns piano. Let's pick the one. We'll invest in that one kid. So anyway, my son's been playing, but the other day I sat down and I thought, I'm going to play the piano. I haven't played in a long time. And I ended up playing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And my kids all came around me and they were like, my turn next. And I was like, get away. This is mom's turn. This is my chance. I never get to play. And it just brought me so much joy to sit down and remember this does bring me joy. And I felt stress relieving from my body, because I hadn't taken the time to sit down because I have so many things on my plate. But to sit down, I literally felt stress going away as my fingers were plucking out songs that I haven't played in years, because I found an old book that had a song that I remember playing when I was 14. And to start playing that song again, it was super rusty and not well at all. But by minute 15, after I kicked my kids out of the room, I was like, this is coming back to me. It was really awesome. I just thought music is beautiful. And then on the flip side of that, a year and a half or 2 years ago, my husband took me to Anastasia, the musical, and I wasn't performing and was just listening to the music, and it brought me to tears. And that's when I'm like, man, music can be such a powerful thing, that it really can touch your soul in that way, whether you're just consuming it or if you're producing it. So I love that you're saying art for art's sake, because honestly, sometimes you do think, I don't have time for this. And I'm wondering if you've had any experiences like that in your life where you thought, I don't have time for this, but I'm going to do this. And have you done it intentionally, or has it been a side benefit?
I love that question. I just think about several times when I was down in law school. So I'm at BYU Law, and there's the HVAC that's just right across the way. And I am like, I just need to get out and do something. And I go over and I just get one of those practice rooms at the bottom of the HVAC, and I just play. And I'm just playing for me. And I'm just playing so that I can release some, like you said, release some stress, feel like I'm doing something that just makes me whole again, right? I'm bringing myself back to myself. And again, that art for art's sake, the fact that we can bask in something that we've created and it's ours, we've created it, this music, and it's just for us, it's just for our ears. And to me, that's beautiful. And I think, unfortunately, I think that sometimes, especially in today's world, we see that every hobby that we gain or we get needs to have some grand plan around it, right? Like if I'm going to learn this, I'm going to go and I'm going to start this channel and I'm going to start a music group and do this and go down that direction. I guess it's funny because I am in a music group now. So that did end up happening, but, but I love to create and write music. And so I'll get these ideas, but they're just for me. And I'll go and I'll write a simple melody and I have them and I love them. And when I want to share them with someone, I'll share a simple melody that I've created, a lullaby, but I have no intentions of releasing this or giving this away because it's something that I've made for me. And maybe someday I will, but for me, I'm creating it because I felt inspired or impressed in this moment to do it. You asked about the intentionality of it, right? Or whether it just flows.
Yes.
I think that, I don't know, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Because sometimes when I feel something, I'm like, I want to express vocally or with my harp or on piano, I have to be intentional about setting it simply because one, I am so busy with work and with law school and I don't have any kids, but I know that when I do someday, and I hope I do, that I will be able to be intentional about bringing them to music as well as bringing myself back to music in the midst of so much going on.
That is all so beautiful. And I think I love how you said, bask in it, bask in this joy that you feel. And I know that when you have kids that they will love music because as Courtney was talking about playing on the piano and there's the word playing, right? And when kids see you having joy in something, they're going to want to do it. The best way to get a kid to play with joy is that you start playing with it or you try to put it away. That's also, you start to pretend to donate it and then all of a sudden it's their favorite again.
Do you have a nanny cam on me? That literally happened this week. I'm like,
oh, I think it's a universal thing with children.
But it literally happened yesterday. That's so funny that you bring that up.
It's so obvious that when you're playing an instrument or when you're enjoying music, it's so fun for our children to enjoy it. I love music and my son, my oldest, loves music and he loves hype music. He can feel it and it's so beautiful to see how it comes so naturally to children and it brings out that child part of us, the innate love for this creativity and expression and movement and all these beautiful things that has been given to us by God. And so it really is developmental and it's just a way to have that art. So I love that. Thank you for that point. Along with that, are there any like mottos or sayings that you live by?
Yes, there is one that I developed on my Latter-day Saint mission. I served in Japan, and it is the motto that music is the language that reaches everyone, that touches everyone. And I had this really sweet experience where I couldn't share how I wanted to articulate in the Japanese language what I wanted to at some point. And so the next best thing I could go to was sing in Japanese, I Am a Child of God, a song to them, what I did know how to sing, and I was able to sing. And all of a sudden I saw and I felt the demeanor in the room change. I saw that they understood that we were connecting as two people on this planet, as souls. And although we could not communicate articulately with a language that either one of us could understand, we could communicate through music. And I know that's cheesy and it's cliche, but I think it's true. It's absolutely true. And it's exciting to see. And I love to see just through social media, different cultural music being shared and being adapted and being learned. And so not only do we share it with our own styles, but we're able to learn and create with others in a way that brings us together, uniting the world through music and through social media.
I just think that's awesome. I love that that's the song you sang too in Japanese. So you speak English and Japanese and you play the harp and you're a law student. You just do all the things, Maren. You're so awesome.
Oh my goodness. No, I did speak Japanese on my mission really well. I don't know how I speak it now, but if you don't use it, you lose it. But it's an amazing language and culture and I loved it so much.
I have heard that learning a language is similar to learning an instrument, or that there is some connections there for musicality or learning an instrument to being able to learn a language.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've also heard that.
Yes. Yep. That's 100% true, because you're learning a whole new subset of interacting and understanding the world and thinking about the world. Again, it changes your brain. And they say after you've learned, isn't it like your first language, your second language is still difficult, but then after that, your third language that you add is all of a sudden easier, and your fourth and your fifth. But I don't know if many people have the time to go from one language to the next.
They say that about kids too. And I'm telling you, I don't know that any of that's true.
I've never heard that about kids. I'll call your bluff on that.
No, I've heard that once you have the third, that's when you're outnumbered, and anything after 3 is doable. My friend that just had her 8th kid was like, oh yeah, they all start helping, because by the time you're having more than 4, the older ones are old enough to help with the younger ones. She's like,
oh yeah,
no big deal. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. I'm so proud of her.
I'm like, there's so many shoes. I can't handle the shoes.
That's amazing. Oh
Like,
my gosh.
I feel like it's like that with languages. Maybe it's the same. People who would swear by it, good for them. But for the rest of us, we hear those kind of things, and it's, at least to me, I'm intimidated.
I love it. I just think it's so exciting. Thank you for being honest, our music teacher, because it's beautiful to hear. There are so many options and opportunities, and that your mind is just expanding, that we're not limited, and that music is that way that we can do it in a fun way. It's not drudgery, it's exciting, and it's really an easy thing to incorporate into our day. I mean, it brings, like you said, peace and happiness and all these good things, and sharing it with our kids and people around us, and doing it on our own as a private thing as well. Just keeping it close to us is a way for us to grow. And that's wonderful. That's exactly why we wanted to have you on, is because I think that's what we all need to hear, is something like that it's motivating and inspiring. So, Maren, for our sisters, we usually end with a call to action, something to do this week. What would you say would be something that is an actionable thing for them to do this week?
I would say I have 2 calls to action. One is to allow yourself to intentionally bring in those things that bring you joy, because you know what they are. And it may not be music, and that's okay. It could be playing pickleball. It could be, I was going to say playing the nose flute. I don't know why that came to mind, but,
we're keeping it.
So that's my first one. And then my second one is just to start observing how you use music in your life, in what ways you have used it in the past, and how you can. Like, I love, Carly, you talked about your running playlist, because we all have those songs that pump us up. And maybe at some point, maybe you're giving birth and you need to pull out that running playlist to get your heart going, to feel pumped up and ready to go. But it could just be like you're preparing for something extremely stressful, and so you need to have that pump up album going. Or you're just wanting something calm to get your breathing to slow down. Maybe you're feeling some anxiety, so you're bringing some slow, calming music that allows you to be mindful and to be aware of your surroundings. So that second one is just observe how you're doing it, and then maybe make some goals on how you think you can implement some new measures to use music as a tool.
Wonderful. I love those calls to action so much. Thank you for sharing those with us. Before we ask for your social information so that our sisters can get in touch with you, Maren, is there any other messages that you have for our sisters today that you want them to know?
I do have one more thing. And it's just that everyone is inspired differently and by different art, by different mediums. And so recognizing this idea that maybe it's certain musicals. Like, I know that some people in my life, they are very much inspired when they watch Les Miserables, the musical. They recognize and they understand these ideas of change in their life and repentance. And some people who watch it don't like that. Maybe they feel uncomfortable because it's opera, it's singing very vibrato-y the whole time. And so they don't resonate with that. And yet other people, I have a friend who he was raised with rap music, all growing up with all the words that you can imagine. But that was his upbringing. And actually, he's at BYU Law School with me, but he was telling me how that's like his favorite music that he listens to. And it brings him a lot of peace and joy. And while I don't relate to that because I didn't listen to much rap music growing up, I'm grateful that he recognizes that in himself. And that's something that he connects with. And I hope that he could use that as a tool in his life. And so I know what I resonate with, and it's more of a jazz. Jazz is something that brings me inspiration. And so when I'm feeling like I want to be inspired, I will go more to this jazz music. And I guess it's this self-awareness of how do I feel? What sort of connection do I have to different pieces? And how can I implement those in my life so that they can help me accomplish a certain outcome or a certain goal?
I love that. I think within that, I hear that we need to be confident in our music choice. Let that be an expression of us. We don't have to be self-conscious about our playlists. I think that was like a whole phase in our life, like as young adults and teenagers, you were like, oh, I like this group. I don't know. Is that cool or not? We're all past that point. Just love what you love. If it's country, if it's whatever type of music that inspires you, just lean into that. I really love that. That's awesome.
So wonderful. So Maren, where can our sisters find you?
So you can find me with the 3 Reds at 3 Reds Music. So we're on Instagram, all the socials. And then I'm just creating on my personal music platform. And then we'll hopefully be creating more media and music there for enjoyment and for myself at M Paris Media. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. We will be sure to include links to her social media accounts for M Paris Media and for at 3 Reds in our show notes today, along with our minute marker timeline and any other resources that we've talked about today. Maren, we're so glad that you joined us. It truly has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on. You guys are fantastic. It's been so fun.
It really has been. Like, this has just been such an uplifting conversation. Now I want to go turn on some music. What kind it will be, I will find out as soon as we end this call. I'm not sure yet. Do I want some calm, relaxing something, or do I want to be pumped up? But we're so grateful that you joined us. And don't forget to apply Maren's call to action this week and allow yourself to intentionally bring things into your life that bring you joy and observe how you use music in your life. And we invite you to join our online conversation this week about this episode on Instagram at the Hey Sister Podcast or at facebook.com/Hey Sister Podcast. We also invite you to share a link to today's episode to anyone in your life you think could benefit from a little musical inspiration, which, by the way, I think that could be everyone. We're so grateful for our new favorite music teacher and member of the Hey Sisterhood community, Maren. Sisters, we look forward to talking to y'all next week as we continue our back to school series. And as a little teaser for next week, it's math class. Aren't we all so excited for math? But it's going to be really fun, I promise. So come back because we're going to be talking about budgeting and you are going to love it. We've got a super engaging teacher and I am excited for y'all to come back and join us next week. So have a wonderful week, sisters. We'll talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. It could be playing pickleball. It could be, I was going to say playing the nose flute. I don't know why that came to mind, but.
We're keeping it.
That is cool.
I did just start wiping my nose and had to mute myself. So you might have seen me do that and it was like a subconscious thing. I was not playing the nose flute though.
Hey, you might have an aptitude. Who knows?
Hey, who knows?
Hey, who knows? There we go.